James,
Yes?
it's time to make another video.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm back. This is Push and Plunder, a puzzle platformer game I've been working on for almost 2 years. Well, sort of. In this video, I'm going to show you the triumphs and defeats of my game dev journey since I last posted a video back in April of 2023. We are going to take a look at the game in the state I left it in, the awkward in-between time when it sat on a shelf and collected dust, and its triumphant return to development earlier this year. In Push and Plunder, you navigate a platforming maze of barrels and boxes, ledges and gaps, fire and ice, and more to get to your goal. Sweet, sweet moolah. The lovely green stuff. Dare I say treasure. Each puzzle teaches you to think outside the box and or barrel to find a solution, and you learn more and more as you progress through the game. Push and Plunder began life in January of 2023. It takes inspiration from an old shareware game from the 2000s called Professor Fizzwizzle. When I was a dumb drooling kid, I loved playing Fizzwizzle with my dad. Now I'm all grown up and making games of my own. I started my game dev process by working out a basic prototype for the game. I used a simple red square and some really fast art to get the point across. Once I had the basic prototype in place, I began fleshing out other mechanics such as the potions you collect, teleporters, clouds you can walk on, and more. Once I was through with inventing these mechanics, I began adding artwork to the game, filling out the world with grassy platforms, ladders, potions, and of course, the hero, Rollo the Viking. Isn't he adorable? I spent a good amount of time making particle effects and backgrounds. At this point, I had been working on the game for several weeks, and as I approached the threshold of actually having to bring the mechanics together in a cohesive way, I started to feel burnt out. I wasn't sure if my skills were good enough to make the game the way I wanted to. I decided to take a break from the game for a while and work on some smaller projects. For the next couple of months, I made some smaller games such as this one, where you stack a tower of sheep to reach a goal, this one where you are being hunted by green slimes and have to time your shots with your ice bolt to survive, and this puzzle game where you must power up all of the nodes to solve the puzzle. I also made several small prototypes during this time that will never see the light of day. I spent the summer of 2023 working at FSY, a summer camp my church runs. I didn't have much time for game dev until the fall. By then, I was wrapped up in the idea of a new project. I spent the fall of 2023 learning new stuff about game dev. I had always wanted to make a fun multiplayer family game like Mario Party or Fusion Frenzy, or something similar to the multiplayer arcade classic Gauntlet. I love the experience of playing games together, so I set out to learn the things I would need to know to make a more complex game like this. I learned about random level generation and peer-to-peer networking. I developed a small game similar to Hot Potato where you have to quickly tap your screen to send an old cartoony bomb from your phone to your friends' phones. Whoever has it when the time is up is out and the game continues until there is only one player remaining. As fall turned into winter, I started to have Push and Plunder begin to dance in the back of my mind once again. I was feeling like I needed to release a game as I hadn't done so for a while. I messed around with some other prototypes for a bit, feeling out what I wanted to do next. Come January of 2024, I took a side quest to begin designing a card game called Wild West Rummy. This card game took up a good chunk of my time in 2024, and it's out on Amazon now. Let me know if you would be interested in a video about its development. Finally, by the spring, I was ready to dust off an old project. I pulled Push and Plunder out of game dev purgatory, dusted it off, and started fiddling around with it once more. I had to relearn the mechanics I had designed myself and wallow in misery as I examined my now primitive systems. It was amazing how much my skills grew since I worked on the project. As I look at the game, I realized that I had maybe overscoped it back at the beginning. I trimmed some of the edges away and focused on turning what I already had into a fully developed game. Here are some of the things I cut out. I originally wanted a Super Mario Bros. 3 style overworld/level select screen. This would have been cool, but I decided to cut it out in favor of completing the game. I also wanted to add more pickups besides the potions, such as Valkyrie wings that let you fly over gaps, a belt of giant strength that lets you push multiple objects, and a slime potion that sticks to platforms and objects to make them longer or taller. But hey, maybe someday I'll make a sequel that includes these things. One of the first things I did when I started working on Push and Plunder again was to create a menu and a level select screen. I went with a very straightforward system that displays the levels like so. It's not as cool as an overworld map, but it gets the job done. Next, I realized that I would really benefit from having a level editor in the game. A part of this realization was reading John Romero's book Doom Guy: Life in First Person. He talked in his book about how having good tools is absolutely crucial and about how he always makes tools for his games to speed up the design process. It took me a few weeks to really get my level editor functioning, and it went through multiple versions until I had it working just right. Let me get into a little bit of detail about how my level editor works. In the editor, you can add in tiles and objects to the grid to build out a puzzle. You can press play and test the levels as you go along. Once the puzzle is finished, you hit save. The system converts all of the objects in the level into a tile map. The JSON data of the tile map is saved to an array along with the tile map for the ground tiles and ladders, which I keep track of on different tile maps. The system then downloads the array as a JSON file. The level editor can also load these JSON files so they can be played directly from the level editor once they have been made. When I finish designing the level for the game, I download it and open it in my text editor on my computer and copy the JSON data into an array in construct 3 that corresponds to the level in the level select screen. The game then loads the puzzle from the array and converts it back into the proper tile maps and objects, depending on which level you select in the level select screen. This means that technically each level leads to the same layout in the system, but it arranges the objects in real time to show the appropriate level. So anyway, that's enough of the technical stuff. Let's shift gears for a moment and I'll tell you about something really awesome that happened in my life. Shortly before I started working on the game again, I met this beautiful woman. We started dating and we fell in love. We got married and now we are living in a little farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. We have gorgeous views, peace and quiet, bad Wi-Fi, and we found a stray kitten one day that we named Oreo. I've never been happier than I am now. My lovely wife always makes great suggestions when I am working on a project and get stuck on something. She is so amazing. She even made the game's new title art. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. When we got back from our honeymoon, I started working on building the levels in the game. After spending all of this time making the game, it was finally time to make the game. During the game's stint in limbo, I had actually spent a good amount of time learning and thinking about puzzle design. One of the best things I learned was from a video by Game Maker's Toolkit, because of course it was. In the video, Mark talked about his puzzle game and about the process of designing puzzles for it. It was just what I needed. He taught about a process where you create a matrix that combines all of the different mechanics in the game and lists their interactions. These interactions form the meat of the puzzle. Mark also talked about asking yourself what this puzzle teaches the player about the game. This advice was really useful and it helped me to very quickly come up with a lot of great interactions for my puzzles. GMTK is a great channel, so thanks a bunch, Mark. With my list of puzzle ideas, I got started designing the levels and it didn't take very long at all to come up with some good ones. I designed them with the learning process in mind. I want to bring the player along organically and help them learn about the game's mechanics in a fun way. The result of this is a difficulty curve that kind of looks like a sine wave. The puzzles start out easy and get harder until the player masters a set of mechanics, then it starts over with new mechanics that build on the previous ones over time, and start to get harder again until the player has mastered these and the process repeats. I'm not gonna lie, some of the puzzles I've made are pretty brutal. The game currently has 60 levels and I triple dog dare you to try and beat them all. After the levels were finished, I spent a good amount of time finding background music that I liked. I went with some medieval tracks by these artists on Open Game Art. I'm still a little iffy on my own music composition skills, and these artists did a great job, so thank you. I did make my own sound effects, however. I also spent a bunch of time polishing the game and creating a system that allows it to automatically adapt to most aspect ratios. I have released the game on iOS and on itch.io both for free. And that brings us up to the present. Push and Plunder is finally in what I would consider a provisionally finished state, in that it could be left alone, or it could also be expanded on, depending on what I decide to do. The thing is, I'm not really sure what I want to do next. I've been working on a second set of levels that I could possibly release as an in-app purchase on the mobile version, potentially doubling the size of the game for the low price of probably $1 or $2, or I could also start working on a new game, something completely fresh. I could get back into making what I would consider my dream game, a game that is a modern version of good old-fashioned couch multiplayer games like Mario Party, Mario Kart, Fusion Frenzy, or Halo 3's Capture the Flag. I could work on a bunch of smaller projects for a while to continue to sharpen my skills. I could take a break from game dev and finally write that novel I've been thinking about. I know I definitely want to continue making videos for this channel no matter what project I work on. What do you think I should do next? And that's the story of my game dev journey over the last 700 days, well, give or take a few. It has been a fun project to work on, and boy have I learned a lot. I hope you continue to join me on the journey. Thanks for watching.